So our Oni, yeah, so let's take a look at this one. So of course, for today's video, I am of course taking a look at this game along with its reimagining, The Horror of Blueberry Arson. So, what is this game about? And how good was it? Well, both games are about a group of kids exploring either a abandoned mansion in Aoni or of course a abandoned hot springs building in Horror of Blueberry Onsen. The game pretty much follows the same route with each one, but the reimagining does allow for different endings and also combines and also kind of brings back a character from the roguelike mode that appears in a remaster. And so I guess, what is the story? So the story, as it goes, in both, is that this group of middle schoolers are of course investigating a abandoned mansion or some hot springs, as there's a rumor about a monster that haunts the place. It is then that they meet a creature known as the Oni, which begins to hunt them down one by one. In the original, Hiroshi is the only survivor, but in the reimagining, the game the ending depends on decisions that are made by Hiroshi throughout the story. All your friends can survive, or none of them can survive. It's really just up to you to decide how you play. But what else is there to say? Well, that's pretty much the story, is that you just gotta escape from the monster. But the reimagining does give some further details for the Aoni and kind of explains a bit more about them, which could be argued that it does take away from the scare factor, but it can also be argued that it does make the Aoni more interesting than it already was. Gameplay is pretty simple. You're just traversing around the mansion or hot springs, solving puzzles, and avoiding the monster. I compared this to Resident Evil in a previous video, and I still do stand by that. The game does feel a bit like it, albeit without zombies and such, but it does kind of capture the atmosphere of Resident Evil and does kind of feel like it mimics the gameplay. I'd say this is a survival horror game, and it does pretty well for what it does. And I think the experience for this one was pretty good. So, how do I feel about both games? Well, I played Horror of Blueberry Arson first, and personally I do think it's the better one, although there are a few things about the first one I do enjoy more. What I do enjoy about the reimagining more is, the graphics and of course the gameplay along with the character designs. I think they look a lot better compared to the original, but the original does have some things that I like more. First of all, it doesn't really explain what the Oni is. It just simply says that it's a monster. And while there's variants of it, like in the reimagining, it doesn't really go as far to explain where all these are coming from. I do appreciate that they are adding some lore with the Oni in the reimagining, but I do like how they kind of kept it as a bit of a secret with the first one. And of course, Horror of Blueberry Onsen is a reimagining. At first I thought it was a sequel, but it's pretty much the same story, but just with a few tweaks here and there. And of course, do I recommend this one? Yeah, I personally recommend both of these. Well, The Horror of Blueberry Arson is the better one, and it did have some more scares, especially with the four-legged Aoni. I do think that both are pretty good games and do have some really good moments in them. Personally, I find the more black-shaped Aoni that you encounter in both games, well, the late stages of both games, to be one of the more scarier variants. But then also the fact that your friends can turn into these monsters really adds to the horror factor, and especially in the reimagining, definitely could show you, some consequences depending on what choices you made. But overall, I really do enjoy this one, and I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't played it yet. They're both on Switch along with PC, and I cannot recommend them more. But that's all I really have to say for this one. So of course, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.